Our planet is home to millions of old and new species, some of which we have discovered while the rest are yet to be found. Scientists and even common people discover new species every single day on land and in the vast oceans covering a major part of Earth. Despite the continuous efforts and expeditions, these oceans remain the least explored part of the planet. Right now, we know very little about what lies in the darkest corners of these immense water bodies, especially the water that has remained covered by thick ice sheets for hundreds of thousands of years in Antarctica. But in the last few decades, experts have drilled holes in this ice and attempted to get a glimpse of what lies underneath, and what they've found is mind-boggling to say the least. The icy continent is home to unique ecosystems that are poorly understood and creatures we've never seen before. But this wasn't always the case. Previously, researchers thought it was just a lifeless wasteland, and only a few microorganisms were able to survive in the harsh climate of Antarctica. But now, with powerful drilling methods, researchers have been able to penetrate the icy surface and explore the waters below it. One such exploratory effort conducted by the IceCube Observatory brought them face to face with a massive and frightening creature that could be an entirely new species. The IceCube Neutrino Observatory was constructed at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station of Antarctica. The project is recognized as an experiment of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, also called CERN. IceCube is a part of a series of projects developed and supervised by the University of Wisconsin-Madison. However, the funding and support is provided by several other universities and research institutions around the world. The construction was only possible during the Antarctic austral summer months from November to February, as the permanent sunlight allowed for 24-hour drilling. Construction began back in 2005 with the deployment of the first IceCube string, and sufficient data was collected to verify that the optical sensors were functioning properly. Between 2005 and 2006, about 8 additional strings were also deployed, thereby making IceCube the largest neutrino telescope on the planet. Construction was finally finished in December 2010. In total, the project cost a whopping $279 million. Now, there are thousands of sensors located under the Antarctic ice, distributed over a cubic kilometer. Just like its predecessor, the Antarctic Muon Neutrino Detector Array, or AMANDA, the IceCube Observatory consists of spherical optical sensors called digital optical modules. Each one of these has a photomultiplier tube and a single-board data acquisition computer that sends digital data to the counters on the surface above this array of sensors. The DOMs here are deployed in the form of strings of 60 modules, each at depths between 1,450 and 2,450 meters, into holes that were melted in the ice with the help of a hot water drill. The strings are deployed on a hexagonal grid at a distance of around 125 meters between them. Vertically, these DOMs are spaced 17 meters apart. IceCube was primarily designed to look for point sources of neutrinos in the TeV range in order to explore the highest energy astrophysics processes. In November 2013, experts working on the project announced that IceCube had detected 28 neutrinos that most probably originated outside our solar system. But during this mission, a team of researchers came across a strange shape-shifting creature that scared them out of their wits. Down one of the deepest holes in the Antarctic ice, a camera was lowered so scientists could see how it looked. That was when they spotted the strange animal that resembles a squid or an octopus, according to the eyewitnesses. The IceCube Neutrino Observatory acknowledged the incident and explained that this camera system had been deployed in the hole between the 25th to the 29th of January 1998 at the very bottom of string 13 of AMANDA. There was one down-looking camera and a second camera too that was looking into the wall of the hull. There was a glass sphere with a source of light pointing towards the walls that was installed just 5 meters below the cameras. Experts believe that the depths given in the footage are interpolated and could actually have uncertainties up to 100 meters below 1,300 meters. While the entire footage is quite eerie, most of the viewers have been intrigued by the scary creature that was captured in the hole by the cameras. It was a truly fascinating sight, and as the camera approached the creature, it changed its shape. This led some experts to speculate that the unique animal may have been mimicking the device. This mimicking behavior is not new for the scientists who have observed it numerous times in various other creatures. Some of the people who saw this clip also suggested that it could be a squid, but marine biologists have clarified that its description does not match the typical features of a squid. Certain people also believe that this wasn't a known creature and it may belong to an entirely new species science is yet to discover. Many who saw the photograph opined that they've never seen anything like this in the natural world previously. Even the creatures from legends and mythical lores don't match the descriptions of this particular shape-shifting animal. This is a plausible theory as Antarctica has numerous frozen lakes scattered across it and no one knows what hides in the waters underneath the many miles thick ice sheets covering them. These could hold complex life forms and entirely unique ecosystems that are nothing like the ones existing at the surface. Research teams from many different countries have carried out various experiments in the frozen continent, but most of them remain tight-lipped about their findings. There's a chance more unknown creatures have been found here that the public doesn't know about. And with further drilling into the ice, there might be many more revelations in store for us in the near future. One very intriguing theory proposes that this creature filmed by the Ice Cube Observatory could be the dreaded organism 46b. A Russian team of scientists allegedly captured this beast while working near the research outpost at Vostok Station. According to descriptions, the organism 46b is an enormous 10 meters long squid-like animal with 14 tentacles. It lived in Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake located just underneath 2 miles of ice in Antarctica. The animal can allegedly release a toxin into the water that would immobilize its prey from a distance of up to 150 feet. The creature also displayed an astonishing degree of shapeshifting. Its limbs were animate and aggressive even after they had been amputated. The organism showed a mind-blowing degree of hostility and intelligence. Vostok Station was established by the Soviets in 1957, but it was in 1974 they realized it was sitting above a subglacial lake. It took the researchers 30 long years to drill into the ice and finally breach through to the lake on the 5th of February 2012. Dr. Anton Padalka claims that he was part of the first scientific expeditions that explored the lake. According to him, they encountered organism 46b on their first day of breaching the lake. It disabled their radio, which they later realized was done intentionally. At the time, they didn't know it could paralyze the prey from such a long distance, and unfortunately, that's how one of his colleagues and lifelong friend lost his life. While elements of the report suggested that the story may have been a hoax, people are still convinced that a shape-shifting squid-like animal does inhabit the waters of Antarctica, especially after Ice Cube Observatory footage became viral. It's also important to note that Dr. Padalka has been impossible to locate, and the account is known from just a handful of vague sources. It's no secret that Russian scientists did in fact breach Lake Vostok, but it's highly unlikely that they found a monstrous creature but didn't take pictures of it. More recently, researchers drilled through an Antarctic ice shelf in order to sample sediment when they found strange animals that logically were not supposed to be there. And unlike the organism 46b story, this one came with hardcore proof. In the middle of the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf, located a 5-hour flight away from the nearest Antarctic station, nothing comes easy. Geologist James Smith and his team from the British Antarctic Survey endured a good 3 months of freezing temperatures, slept in tents, and survived on dehydrated food. They were trying to reach the seafloor sediment that was locked under half a mile of ice. The team had to melt about 20 tons of snow to create 20,000 liters of hot water in order to get the sediment. They pumped this scalding water through a pipe lowered down a borehole. It took them 20 long hours to melt through the ice, inch by inch, until they finally pierced it. Afterwards, they lowered an instrument to collect the sediment along with a GoPro camera. At first, the collector came back empty. They tried again, but it was still empty. Later that night, Smith decided to go through the footage, and that's when he realized what the problem was. The video shows a descent through 3,000 feet of blue-green ice, but suddenly it terminates and opens up into dark seawater. The camera lowers down another 1,600 feet until it's finally able to see the seabed, which is mostly light-colored sediment that Smith and his team wanted to acquire. But in between the sediment, there was something dark. That dark thing turned out to be a rock that the camera hit with a thud. After righting itself, the camera scanned the rock, revealing the most unexpected thing. It was something geologists hadn't imagined they would find here. It was life. According to Smith, it's just one big boulder in the middle of a relatively flat seafloor. It's not as if the seafloor is littered with these things. It was sheer luck that they had drilled in the only wrong place for collecting seafloor muck, but it seems like this was meant to be. The camera was in the absolutely ideal place for a 1 in a million shot at finding life in an environment that scientists didn't think would support it at all. Smith's colleague Hugh Griffiths of the British Antarctic Survey watched the footage back in the UK, and he noticed the kind of film on the rock. It was most likely a layer of bacteria known as a microbial mat. An extraterrestrial-looking sponge and other stalked animal were also dangling from the rock. These stouter cylindrical sponges were hugging the surface. The rock was also lined with wispy filament that could be a constituent of the bacterial mats or a peculiar animal known as the hydroid. The accidentally discovered rock was about 160 miles away from daylight, which means it's located far away from the nearest location that might be a source of food. As the expert said, life had absolutely no right being there, but it had found a way to beat the odds. Scientists are quite certain that these animals live in total darkness, but how they thrive here in the absence of marine snow is truly unfathomable. There's very little nutrition available, and worse, the animals are glued to the spot, but they're still surviving. Researchers believe that it's likely that the drift of marine snow has been flipped on its side, so the food source here is moving horizontally and not vertically. The charts of currents reveal that there are productive regions between 390 and 930 miles away. It may not be a lot, but enough organic material is riding these currents hundreds of miles to feed these animals. Unfortunately, the researchers couldn't collect specimens from the boulder. That is why there is no way of knowing what these sponges and deep-sea critters are surviving on.